Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to completely upend everything you thought you knew about one of history's most notorious groups of villains, the Philistines. Seriously, if you think you know their story, get ready to have your assumptions totally challenged by the dirt itself. We're stripping away the ancient myths, and we're looking exactly at what the archaeological record has to say. Let's dive right in.
You know, today, calling someone a Philistine is, well, it's a pretty heavy insult. It essentially means someone's an uncultured brute with zero appreciation for the arts or the finer things in life. But where did that specific idea actually come from? Because it sure wasn't born out of modern historical consensus. Instead, that reputation was pulled straight from the ancient texts of their fiercest rivals.
So that brings us to a massive fundamental question. What if history's biggest villains were actually its greatest trendsetters? We're going to dig into the dirt and uncover exactly how modern archaeology is solving a cold case that is, 3,000 years old? We'll see how the spade has revealed a highly advanced cosmopolitan superpower just hiding beneath millennia of extraordinarily bad PR. Section 1. The Uncultured Brute Myth.
To really get at the truth, we first have to look at the massive smear campaign waged against them by their neighbors. The Hebrew Bible constantly defines the Philistines by their uncircumcised status, painting them as this hostile, backward horde of marauders whose only goal was destruction. But the physical evidence dug up from their actual cities? It tells the exact opposite story. Far from being simple, violent brutes, these were highly literate people. They were brilliant urban planners and, honestly, incredibly sophisticated artists.
I mean, you've probably heard this famous taunt from David to the giant Goliath. It perfectly captures the intense cultural disdain and the geopolitical friction of the era. But while this quote gives us an incredible window into ancient Near Eastern rivalries, it completely masks where the Philistines actually came from. Who were they really before they settled on the coast?
Section 2. Uncovering the Aegean origins.
For centuries, their origins were an absolute mystery. They were heavily linked to the violent Late Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BC and to those mysterious maritime invaders known as the Sea Peoples. But the smoking gun finally arrived, and actually it was quite recently. Scientists managed to extract DNA from the first ever discovered Philistine cemetery in Ashkelon. This was a monumental breakthrough. And guess what? They didn't find mass graves of violent brutes, no. They found elegantly arranged burials, complete with cosmetic jugs of perfumed oil and absolutely beautiful jewelry.
The ancient DNA proved a sudden, unmistakable influx of roughly 14% Southern European and Aegean ancestry. This directly linked the arrival of the Philistines to Crete and Mycenaean Greece. Now, just pause and think about the sheer scale of that for a second. In the ancient world, coordinating a maritime migration across the Mediterranean to establish a 14% genetic footprint in a totally new territory, that is an astonishing feat of navigation and organization. They literally sailed across the sea to reach the Levant.
Upon arriving in the Levant, they set up the Pentapolis. This was a highly organized confederation of 5 incredibly powerful city-states: Ashkelon, Ekron, Gath, Ashdod, and Gaza. And what's cool is each of these cities had a specialized role ranging from massive seaports to inland industrial hubs. Each one was ruled by a localized lord known as a seranim, which, fascinatingly enough, is linguistically related to the Greek word tyrant.
Section 3. An ancient industrial superpower.
So far from being backward nomads, the Philistines actually brought awe-inspiring industrial globalization to the ancient Near East. Just wrap your head around the sheer scale of their operations. At their peak, the single inland city of Ekron utilized over 100 massive presses to produce an estimated 5,000 tons of olive oil every single year. This wasn't some quaint little agricultural village pressing oil for their daily bread, right? This was a massive, highly organized factory city engineered specifically for international export to huge players like Egypt and the Neo-Assyrian Empire.
And their industry definitely didn't stop at olive oil. They completely dominated early Iron Age metallurgy, bringing in incredibly advanced smelting techniques that essentially gave them a regional monopoly. On top of that, they mass-produced luxury textiles using thousands of European-style work-weighted looms. And, proving they really knew how to throw a party, their cities featured huge winemaking and beer brewing facilities with multi-stage filtering technologies to serve their elaborate, Aegean-style communal feasts. Oh, and they also produced incredibly distinct, gorgeous bichrome pottery painted with Mediterranean birds and fish.
But wait, it gets better. Microscopic soil analysis proves they engineered a literal agricultural revolution.
They brought in non-native European plants that permanently altered the Levantine ecosystem. We're talking plants like the sycamore fig, cumin, coriander, and the opium poppy. Yep, the supposedly uncultured Philistines were actually introducing early pharmaceutical pain relief to the ancient Levant. They were completely fundamentally reshaping the environment around them.
Section 4. A unique cultural blend.
Now, despite those distinct European roots, the true genius of the Philistines was their remarkable ability to adapt. Their timeline brilliantly illustrates how quickly they morphed from an intrusive Greek-speaking maritime force into a thoroughly integrated Levantine society. Within just a couple of centuries, their distinct European genetic signature faded, and they thrived by adopting local customs. It was this unique cultural blend that sustained them right up until their ultimate destruction and deportation by the Babylonians in 604 BC.
Their religion, it was this fascinating hybrid of two worlds. In private, their homes retained deep Mycenaean traditions, things like central hearths and those seated Ashdod mother goddess idols, but their public state religion quickly took on a much more local flavor. They knew they needed to secure their political dominance and relate to their neighbors in the region.
So they strategically embraced powerful regional Semitic gods. They adopted Dagon for agriculture, Ashtaroth for war, and Baalzebub for healing and oracles. But here is the absolute kicker. They built massive temples for these newly adopted local gods, but they still utilized Greek-style dual-pillar halls. Why does that matter? Because that specific architectural design is the exact structural vulnerability that the biblical figure Samson exploited to bring the temple crashing down in the famous narrative. How wild is that?
Their spoken and written language underwent the exact same vanishing act. By the time the remarkable Ekron royal inscription was carved in the 7th century BC, the Philistines were writing in a local Semitic alphabet. Yet, the text perfectly captures their blended, cosmopolitan identity. I mean, it's written in Semitic, but it features a Greek ruler's name, Ikausu, who is dedicating a temple to an ancient Aegean goddess. It is literally a stunning fusion of cultures carved right into stone.
Section 5. The enduring Philistine legacy.
So why does all of this ancient history actually matter for us today? What's the lasting footprint of this civilization? Well, ironically, by acting as a highly organized, technologically superior threat, the Philistines inadvertently forced the fractured Israelite tribes to unify. Just to survive the creeping Philistine expansion, the loosely connected Israelites had to completely centralize into a single fortified kingdom under leaders like Saul and David. So yeah, the Philistines literally catalyzed the birth of the Israelite monarchy.
Furthermore, their geographic and cultural footprint was so profound that long after they were wiped out by Babylon, Greek historians, and later the Roman Empire, named the entire coastal region after them. The name Philistia evolved linguistically into Syria-Palestina, which forever cemented the name Palestine into the modern map.
We want to leave you with this provocative thought to consider. You know the saying, history is almost always written by the victors. The Philistines were remembered as uncultured brutes simply because their enemies held the pen. But as we've seen in this explainer, the true story, a story of industrial innovators, cosmopolitan artists, and brilliant adapters, was just patiently waiting in the dirt to be rediscovered. It really makes you wonder, how many other historical villains have we completely misunderstood? Keep questioning, keep learning, and hey, thanks for exploring with us.